gonna let you roll with it.
All right, we're rolling. Hello and welcome to our Untitled podcast. My name's Cliff. This is Tim, and we're coming to you live from Carter County. Well, it's not really live. We are alive. We're broadcasting from Carter County, Tennessee. It's Saturday, August 21st, 2021. How's it going, Tim?
Fantastic.
Good.
Awesome.
Well, if you don't know who we are, take us just a minute here to introduce ourselves. No, it doesn't matter, but since we're going to be talking, you might want to have some idea. My name's Cliff. I've been involved in the local music community, local arts community, lived in Carter County most of my life, work here locally, have a family locally, and I like to talk about a whole bunch of crap that a bunch of other people aren't really interested in. But madman/genius Tim.
I like music too.
And I have found common ground on a lot of these topics, so let Tim introduce himself.
I like music, and sometimes I make artistic stuff, and I feel like a lot of people are bored, and so we're going to talk about really ridiculous things, or maybe they're great things. I don't know. We're just going to talk, and if a few people like this, we had fun doing it because we're having fun conversating, and that's my backstory. That's all I care about. I just want to have fun.
Yeah. Well, heck, I mean, we kind of got the idea to even start the podcast because Tim and I were working on some music together. He hit me up and asked if we wanted to work on some songs, and I said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So we started recording it, and in the course of it, we had some conversation about kind of some more esoteric subjects than I'm typically able to talk about with folks. So I thought, well, we just spoke for, 2 hours on kind of a runaway conversation, but it sounded like we were listening to a podcast, what it felt like to me. So I thought maybe we'd give it a try and see if we could come up with something that people are interested in.
Well, I thought after the conversation that surely there had to be 6 more people out there that would like to listen.
I could think so. I mean, surely.
So yeah.
Well, one of the other reasons I feel like there's a lot going on in our local area and really our just whole world. It's turmoil kind of all over the place. Mm-hmm. There's really a lack of dialogue and conversation. I was having a discussion with a man the other day, and he and I like one another. We get along well, and a topic came up that when I gave him my idea on this position, he immediately associated my idea with his political opposition, and you could tell that he became defensive immediately. He became sort of aggressive immediately, and we talked for a minute. But it was like all of a sudden, because I had a differing opinion from him on this one subject, I was suddenly
he grouped you
I was his enemy. Yeah,
you became the other.
Yeah, exactly, the other. Yeah, and that's a pretty interesting reference. I just learned about that recently. Some kind of show where the politicians started. Was it Black Mirror? What it was? Why don't you tell me about it?
I'm not familiar with Black Mirror. I know in political theory of the idea of creating an other, it can be anything. Like, for example, if you want to use more recent times, if you want to use Afghanistan's current. But I remember early Afghanistan when I was younger, we were fear-mongered about Arabs. And so even though we had no real issue. Normal people in Tennessee had never met most Arab people before. They had no issue with them. There's the idea of we have to make you not like this Arab because we need another. It doesn't matter what it is. There has to be an other so we can kind of guide you. But my reference to an other is probably from Lost.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
That other could be, could have been communists in the 50s and 60s, although there was communist infiltration. But you did see some of that used to really otherize people, as it were, and I think
otherize. That's a good word.
And I think the reference may have actually been from the show Electric Sheep or Electric Dreams. It's Philip K. Dick novels. They're short stories that are put into show format, and the idea was that at first there was a guy who he noticed a message from the politician that said kill all the others, and when he talked about it, nobody else really noticed it. So he kept talking about it, and people were like, what's the matter? Killing all the others. What, are you one of the others? And, so it kind of forced compliance. And either way, there comes from a lack of conversation and a lack of willing to listen to somebody else and a willingness to take them as a genuine person because...
I've done it myself. like when I was younger, I was really bad for grouping people. I can tell you the most embarrassing time I ever did it online. I'm sure I did it much worse in person. The most embarrassing time I ever did it, someone was quoting a movie, and I was so riled up. And I was pretty right. I was very right wing when I was around 22ish, and I was so riled up that they were quoting like. I think it was like with that Team Force America or whatever.
Yeah.
They were quoting like
Team
a
America
stupid
World Police, yeah.
Oh, and my like my
enraged
like
you,
it's
huh?
like Bill O'Reilly was like popping out of my skull, like was just screaming at the computer. And so like, but luckily you gain a little bit of self awareness and you can quit acting a fool like that.
Yeah.
But that's a great example of someone who was not even talking about anything I was doing, and as soon as they said something I thought that they became another, and I attacked them, and they were like, "What are you talking about?
Right. Yeah.
What are you talking about?"
So that's kind of the thing that we'd like to get away from. Let's have these conversations, and remember, we're all people. We all have families. We all have different thoughts and opinions, and that's a good thing. That's what makes it being a human being so beautiful. So, with that in mind, the other thing I wanted to talk about is there are lots of holes in the coverage from the local news. They're not really picking up on a lot of the things that people are talking about in the community, a lot of the things that are important to people. So I thought we would talk about some of those things, and maybe we can ask some questions, and eventually we can get to a live format where if you're interested in what we're talking about, or you have something to contribute, or there's something that you think people should be talking about and they're not, you can get that to us and we can talk about it, and you can join the conversation. But first we need you to help us out by listening and sharing if you like what we're talking about. So to start off this episode, our premiere pilot episode of our Untitled podcast, the topic I wanted to bring up was smart poles in Johnson City, Tennessee. Now, if you've not heard of smart poles, you are not alone. When I looked at the YouTube video that came across my feed on YouTube, there were only about 400 views on it at the time that I saw it, which was a few days after it was published, and that was July 2nd of 2021. And there was a report published by a man named John Janko, I believe was his name, and he worked for WJHL, and he spoke to Commissioner John Hunter from the city of Johnson City. They went over the whatever went on in the city commission meeting. There were bans on smoking on public property. There was talk of setting up mobile alcohol sales, but kind of the primary focus of the report were the smart poles. Now, as I said, if you've not heard of them, you're in good company.
We're going to link them in the video.
That's right. Yeah, we'll figure something out with that. We're just kicking this thing off. So,
or you can Google it, smart pole.
Yeah, smart pole Johnson City. It pulls it right up. The report from July 2nd. There's a little bit of video with it. Now, I reached out to Commissioner Hunter and wanted to ask him a few questions about it, mainly to see who I would get in touch with that to learn more about it. Because this was a program that is a pilot program. It's a partnership between Bright Ridge, which is the local power authority in Johnson City, the TVA, and the city of Johnson City. Now you may ask, what's the TVA have to do with it? Well, that's what I would like to know too. What the TVA is offering is to pay for the smart poles in exchange for the data that the smart poles collect. Now, smart poles are, first and foremost, they're light poles, but they also have a wide variety of sensors and equipment that are available for them. I looked up a little bit about these things. They've been used in Los Angeles and several metropolises around the world. They pretty much always have cameras, microphones. They have sensors to detect the amount of people around, the parking. They check out parking stuff, make sure traffic is flowing like it's supposed to, or at least they're monitoring it through it. So it has a lot of tools that sound like they'd be pretty useful for city management. Mm-hmm. So what is the problem with it? Well, I noticed a lot of people had a problem with privacy on it, or it's what appeared to be their problem with it when I looked at the comments, which were all negative on the YouTube video, and I didn't see any other on any of the other local social media. I didn't see anything in favor of this. So at least the public who's viewing it online is not in favor of it, and they seem downright creeped out by it. Mm-hmm. But it passed unanimously at the city commission meeting. So I wondered if there was any public discussion on this, and I wasn't able to find any. But what I did find was public discussion from June 17th of the what to do about crime and homelessness in Johnson City.
Not linked, I'm sure.
Well, surely not. But I noticed something that was a little bit odd. Commissioner Aaron Murphy, he was talking about finding solutions to the problem with crime down there, and where they were talking about that crime and homelessness are not necessarily linked. Which obviously that anybody that's been downtown,
well, yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah. Most of the crime is actually bar fights.
Yeah,
I mean, almost exclusively.
Well, and they were talking on the video about people doing drugs and doing all kinds of we'll just keep it clean and say lewd, lascivious behavior in public, and so I can see why they definitely would want to get that out of there. So their idea was the smart poles right after this. In the next meeting, but I found it odd that Aaron Murphy, he talked about pushing towards local solutions and local community leaders getting together to see what we can do to get this sorted out. And the next thing you know, we've got the TVA offering Johnson City money to put in cameras with all kinds of different sensors connected to the Internet of Things that will collect all kinds of data from everybody who goes through there, especially if you connect to Wi-Fi through it. And they'll be able to run software on it to check out your face, run you through databases.
Well, when you say TVA, I think people need to remember that means the Fed.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean Tennessee government.
Right.
That means the federal government. Tennessee Valley Authority was the original company that came in, and for people around here know, but anybody stumbles upon it, they flooded most of what is called the Tennessee Valley to electrify the United States as we know it, and in the process did a lot of pretty egregious things. And so with that practice, I kind of hold a standard that if once upon a time you were capable of something, you're probably not going to change much. Maybe that's a very naive view to have, but I think that's a safe view to have of large swollen government bodies.
Well, something particularly,
well,
something I thought particularly interesting about the TVA is they are not technically part of the federal government. They are a private corporation that is owned by the federal government.
I didn't know
so
that.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
But guess what else? They have a federal police force. They have federal law enforcement authority all over the United States.
Well, that part makes sense.
So well, they would need to guard the dams and stuff. But
private entity, really? I didn't know that.
But I think that's pretty interesting that it's a combination of it's a private program. Now, the way they pick their board of directors is the President of the United States actually selects the board of directors. The board of directors, they can pick their head, whether it's CEO or whatever kind of chief executive they have at the top of the food chain there. So, how 150 million people voted in the last presidential election thereabout? So your vote, your representation in the TVA is effectively 150 millionth share. So you really don't have much say over it as far as that goes. So it's really a private company, and all they do have federal government oversight. I don't really know how all that works, but I think it's pretty interesting that we're having a private corporation, one of the largest providers of electricity in the United States, that is offering money. Like here's
It's even creepier now that I realize it's not the Fed, because I mean, like, with my whole opinion of Big Brother, it's like they're going to take it. So I'm just I've got my feet up and I'm just going down the river. I'm just letting it take me. I'm like, well, you're going to take all my info, so I'm not going to fight you. But when you find out it's a private, I think it blows people mind when they find out that the Federal Reserve is private.
Yeah.
But finding out, I guess, that the Tennessee Valley Authority,
yeah,
it's a pretty big word to claim as a private group.
I agree.
Anyway, smart poles.
Yeah, but the TVA, they're offering the money. They're offering $335,000 plus to the city of Johnson City, dangling that carrot there. You know what I mean? So what are they getting in exchange? They're getting all the data that those smart poles collect. What kind of sensors will they have? What kind of data will they collect? We don't really know. There's not really been a lot out.
Are they getting the data from people's Wi-Fi usage, or is it mostly security cameras?
Well, I would have to imagine with most Wi-Fi, when you sign on to it, you accept their conditions. Basically, I would have to imagine that you're leaving some trace of your data at least. I'm thinking maybe even up to at least your website history that you visit while you're connected to the smart pole, if not what's already on your history and your cookies and things like
Well,
that.
there was a creepy app, and I'm very behind. There's a creepy app somebody showed me the other day. It was you could actually take a picture of just something. They took a picture of my tremolo pedal on my board, and it popped up places you could buy it.
Yeah.
I live under a rock. Yes, that blows my mind. But if you can do that with just an app on a tremolo pedal, you could probably do that with just people walking around in a crowd. If you had an accurate enough lens.
Yeah, and all you have to do is have the high quality video, the high quality camera. I imagine they have 360-degree cameras. If you're going to put it up, you're going to do it right. So when you have these high quality cameras, like you said, they're going to be able to run all kinds of different software on the video that comes through those cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So there's plenty of software already to analyze someone's walk. You know, everybody has a unique gait. You know, fingerprints, gaits, faces. Everybody has unique identifying characteristics that those cameras can pick up. They're also, I'm sure they'll be able to read license plates. They do have license plate reading software. I mean, and license plate reading cameras all over the country. So they can see whose car is coming in there. You know, those would all be useful tools for crime. But so is kicking in doors without saying who you are or having a warrant. That'd be a useful tool for law enforcement to stop crime too, theoretically. But it comes at the expense of the public's rights. And you can say, well, you have the right of privacy, or no right to privacy in public. I mean, I think the Supreme Court ruled that already, that you really, when you're in public, have no reasonable expectation of privacy. But at the same time, they've also ruled that your car is your private property. So when you're in your car and that thing's looking in at you, it's kind of violating your privacy. But the main thing I was thinking about is people live downtown. There are apartments down there. Is this thing going to be shining in your apartment window? You should have a reasonable expectation of privacy in your apartment.
Where they're located at.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know. We don't know how many there are. As of when I looked into them, I found some stuff from April of 2020, and they were selling for about $175,000 a piece. So you would have to imagine that $335,000 would only buy maybe 2 of them, unless the prices come way down. But I did notice there are a lot of companies making them now. When I searched smart poles, there were dozens of companies ready to sell these to your city and help you with your city planning. So not just the collection of the data. Okay, that's one thing for if Johnson City were doing it. I mean, I still would have a problem with it, but mostly because of shining a camera in, or putting a camera into people's homes and their automobiles, where they should have some reasonable expectation of privacy, or even in your business. There's all kinds of businesses down there, so that's the first thing. But the second thing is, no, the city's not just using that data; they're sending that data to the TVA to do God knows what with it. We may have local.
I think they're going to sell it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. Yeah, I mean, they're a private corporation, so they operate for profit. I would have to imagine they sell electricity. They originally started more of a public works project and kind of bringing the country back from the Great Depression, and it eventually morphed into an electricity company. And I have to imagine there's a lot of money in that, and you're going to try to find ways to make more money.
A lot of money and a lot of things. I guess my question, mostly for the smart poles, because my angle on the whole smart pole thing is, we've already got cameras everywhere. They can probably look through your cell phone camera.
Oh yeah.
Like on which Batman movie is it where Morgan Freeman's character has to make the thing that sets up all the cell phones into a giant. I mean, maybe that's possible. So
I have to imagine it's been happening like that for quite a while for them to put it in a movie.
Even not even like from a visual sense, just all the information that gets pinged out there. You can do a lot with that data alone. So my angle on looking at the 2 poles that they're going to put in Johnson City is, what does the Tennessee Valley Authority get out of that? If you're willing to give people near $500,000 to set up cameras and stuff, what's the information that you're wanting? I'm not even saying it's they're nefarious. It's just, that's a lot of money to pay for.
It is
to pay for some information. So what are you looking for?
Well, and whether or not it's sinister, I feel like this is one of those things where if it has the potential to be used in a sinister manner, and the benefit from it is pretty slight. As far as if catching crime is your benefit, in the community meeting where they talked about the crime and the homelessness, some of the shop owners downtown said, yeah, we can't have all this crime down here, but since the Johnson City Police Department has stepped up their foot patrols, that stuff is all going away. It's gotten better.
Man, I've been playing downtown Johnson City since I was 18. And every weekend when you're down there, there's cops that come up through there.
Oh, yeah.
So the cop presence is there. So it's not, I don't see how that's part of it. The cops have been there the whole time.
And if somebody needs a police officer, they're not far away.
Yeah. The cop right up the road. And I guess my other point with that one is they keep saying we can't have all this crime. There's no crime except on the weekends at night that I know of, unless you're talking about like people fighting at the bus station and stuff like that.
And you're going to have that in any city, especially of any size. And you look at how much Johnson City's grown. I think the population sign now says something like 63,000, but that's up from just over 50,000. Just a little less than 20 years ago. So
I'm sure it's going to keep climbing.
Yeah,
due to the circumstances.
And I feel like if that's just in the city limits. Washington County's pretty large. Kingsport's pretty large. You've got a large. If I'm not mistaken, I've heard it's over 500,000 people in the Tri-Cities area and the surrounding counties. So, yeah, we're a little more spread out, but realistically, that's a lot of people with only a few places to go for a nightlife. And when you have cities of that size, you are going to have places in that city where there is crime at night. But as we said, the police are there and they're catching the people committing most of the crimes. I'm sure there are burglaries that go unsolved and things. But as far as downtown crimes, they seem to be pretty on top of it.
And the homelessness thing is weird with me too, because I've never been a homelessness advocate or anything. I've never stuck my neck out if I'm being honest. I'm not going to sit here and try to virtue signal, but I do pay attention, and if I have $1 or something like that, I do what I can. The homeless people in Johnson City don't bug people. There's different vibes to different kinds of thing, different cities when you go, and the homeless vibe in Johnson City is they kind of keep to themselves unless you're talking about the panhandling ones.
Yeah. And
I'm okay with panhandling because at least you've got a grift to get $1. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you made a dream catcher.
Man's got 8.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm so I don't understand what the problem is with the homeless as far as just stop being seen. I don't know what's your angle here.
Well, I don't know. A lot of the folks that were the downtown business owners, at least, they didn't really seem to have a whole lot of problem with the homeless people. And you're right. I don't see them bother people too much. But there are several shelters in the Johnson City area, and one of which I happen to know stays almost completely empty. They've got a lot of beds. And but when you go into a place like that, you have to follow their rules, and a lot of people aren't willing to do that. And I can respect that. I mean, being homeless, in some ways, I've heard from a lot of people that it's very free, very liberating.
I'm sure to a certain personality type,
yeah,
a certain upbringing, absolutely, I would say that's probably liberation. And I would say a homeless shelter to someone who prefers that type of lifestyle would be not a homelessness. Gets being a part of the hive again, so to speak. But by the way, I don't live in Johnson City, and I'm not homeless. So if I say some really dumb stuff, you just go ahead and whatever.
Yeah, I don't live in Johnson City either, but it's somewhere I've frequented
Been there a lot, yeah.
Since I was a teenager going to Chucky's Pool Hall. Yeah. I don't know, probably 15, 16 years old. I think my friends were driving, but I wasn't. So, yeah, I've definitely been down there a lot and experienced a lot in downtown Johnson City, and I found it to be an overwhelmingly positive experience. I've never had.
I mean, even from my upbringing, I've watched it. It's a grimy city, but that's what a city with low income is, because it's Appalachia. We've not had a booming industry up until relatively recently. Johnson City's been picking up for a long time, but it still had that sort of downtown dirt feel to it. But that doesn't mean dangerous.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean dangerous. So I guess, like I said, I have no stake in the smart poll thing other than the fact that I will be in Johnson City, so they'll be taking my data. I just don't necessarily buy the angle that crime and homelessness is at such an all-time high during a pandemic in downtown Johnson City that we need to start installing polls to, like they're gonna have like homeless spray to spray the homeless away. I don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense how cameras are gonna drive homeless people away.
Well, they have the smoking ban down there too, which I have to wonder, does that city parks and public property that children have access to? I would have to assume that at least during the daytime that the sidewalks would be included in that. Yeah, because you have lots of families going down to the farmers market, downtown. You got all kinds of stuff down there where people go to eat and take their kids. So, yeah, that would be public property. But at nighttime there are no children there. So are you going to alert the smart poles if you're smoking outside the hideaway?
Man, that's such a goofy thing to really think about that. That's a real thing in this day and age that you can get reported for smoking.
Yeah, I mean theoretically, I don't really know that the sidewalks are part of the public property that they're talking about.
That part behind Morel's Music is definitely in there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that's right next to the square. And I guess my mind keeps going to like the Tri-Cities as a whole is like, because I didn't just spend time in Elizabeth and Johnson City. I've been Kingsport, Bristol. Yeah. The Tri-Cities is kind of such a tight little thing that you've been in all these cities this whole time. And so I guess my point there is I've been watching the other cities kind of take these preemptive steps before Johnson City was taking them, because I'm wanting 2-3 years ago maybe is when Kingsport started putting those little middle thingies in the middle of the benches. I don't even remember what they called them, but essentially it was to keep people from sleeping on them at night. You put that little divider down the middle to keep. Oh, now it's 2 seats.
Yeah,
and it's like, no, you just made that not a bed, is what you did. That's what you did.
Maybe they were making this room available for social distancing, so we would have a handy divider there
early.
Yeah, that's it. But no, I get what you mean. You do see, and a friend of mine was telling me he heard something about trying to move the homeless from Johnson City into Elizabeth, and I've not really heard much more about that. But
where'd that info come from?
Well, I don't know, but that reminded me of that South Park episode where they send all the homeless people out to California. Have you seen that one?
No, it's a real thing, right?
Yeah, that's what I was
busing.
That's what I was going to say.
They're going to start busing people at Elizabeth.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They did them to California like that. They some of the more wealthy cities, or some of the cities would say, hey, here's homeless people. Here's a great place out in California. There's all kinds of wealthy people who love to give money away. Let's just take you all out there.
Man, what a D-bag thing. Big cities would do that to each other for a while.
Yeah.
They probably still are.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like California would send like 250 people to New York, and then they'd send them to Indiana. It's like you can try to send people to Elizabeth, but there's nothing for the homeless here. Like I've seen ever since the pandemic, some of this, like I guess like the Asheville traffic.
Yeah.
That they stop here for a minute on their way up the mountain. Like, oh, let's beg for money here for a minute. This town ain't giving no money, so I don't see much point in busting them here.
No. Oh well, I mean, we've
we
had
have a homeless shelter in Elizabeth.
I know there's a women's shelter for, but I don't know if it's for homeless or if it's like.
Is that the Red Legacy? Okay. No, that's not specific.
Yeah, I didn't think it was. I thought it was more of an abused.
I think it's. I think it's a domestic abuse situation.
Yeah. So anyway, that's something going on with smart poles. If you know anything about smart poles, or if you've heard anything else about this, if there was something we missed about.
She's going to say, if you or your loved ones have been affected by smart poles.
Give me a call. 999-888. I don't know. But anyway, if you know anything about this, then you can contribute to it. We'd appreciate it. We'd like to have all the information we get. Yeah.
Could be nothing. It's just a conversation we wanted to have was about big data getting involved with TVA. That's a weird connection.
Exactly.
Big data and TVA getting together.
But yeah, so Tim and I both thought that was a little weird, although as Tim said, with the leap forward we've had over the last years in public surveillance, it is just another step there. So it's like, is this one really worth getting outraged after everything we've already got? But it's definitely something that we should at least know about and be able to talk about and ask some questions about, because I didn't really see any come from WJHL. Maybe they did and just didn't film it, but pretty much just seemed like they released the information that the city provided and said, "Isn't this a great thing?" And let's go on our way.
Here they are.
Yeah, so I'll try to quit bumping the table now because Tim had something he wanted to talk with us.
The idea is every week or month or however long we do this, we try to bring a topic in. And while Cliff spent a good amount of time researching a worthy topic that exists and is real and is tangible and you can research it yourself, and he sent emails and made phone calls and he pounded pavement, all I did was come up with a concept that I don't think we're ready to go to Mars, and I kind of think Elon's full of crap.
I have to wonder that too sometimes when I see some of the nonsense with the cryptos and how he's promoting one and then crapping on it the next time.
Yeah,
and
I guess real context. I don't know if Elon's full of crap. That's just me talking smack. But the real thing I was looking into it is just looking into the idea of even going into Mars started as a joke concept because my cell phone is the exact same size or even smaller than the space between my seat and my console. And we've been joking about stuff falling down car seats since I was born in the 80s, and we've still not fixed that problem yet. And we're going to start launching people up into Mars to start a new world, and that seems so comical to me that we've got so many problems here that we should probably fix first before we go take a planet that doesn't have anything on it.
Well, and have you seen what they want to do to be able to make Mars
go
habitable for humans? So basically the idea is we've got to go up there, and we've had carbon escape, right? So the atmosphere hasn't been able to hold in the carbon or whatever, so we've not been able to maintain the heat in the planet. Is at least it's been a couple of years since I looked into all this. But so what they wanted to do to terraform it was to have factories. Basically, you'd have robot probes go up and bring the materials for factories and assemble these factories that would basically just be smoke machines, and they would smoke up the atmosphere, create lots of carbon dioxide, so that they could create an atmosphere with enough carbon dioxide, because apparently all the carbon dioxide was frozen. Is that what's right? I know the water was frozen, but I think the carbon dioxide on the planet was frozen too. And so they want to be able to melt that carbon dioxide, create more carbon dioxide in order to have a greenhouse effect so that they can capture sunlight, and then you can start seeding and having vegetation and growing that. And so this is a pretty long-term plan.
Yeah.
So you mentioned getting rid of some of the problems that we have here before we do that, but I think it's pretty funny that we take some of the problems that we have here, like polluting the earth, and that's how we're going to start off. Like we
got to stop global warming, but we got to kind of cause it there.
Yeah, we screwed it up too bad here, so let's go do the things that screwed up our planet and do it there. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, I've not really looked too much into the terraforming process of Mars. It just seems insurmountable. And I guess not for an entire society if it just has infinite funds to shoot at it. But yeah, I guess what I started slipping into while looking into the idea that we're not ready for Mars, just even as a joke concept, is we might not actually be ready for Mars. Like, I'm starting to look more into a lot of what Elon Musk has done over the years, and I don't pay attention. This isn't me fanboying. I guess I gave him a little too much credit because I'm starting to see a lot of his stuff is more like a Westinghouse sort of situation than it is like a Tesla, where people are looking at Elon like he's the one shooting these missiles up or rockets up into space, when really it's the team of people that he hired. I'm not saying Elon didn't have anything to do with that, but I know for a fact, like I looked up, he didn't invent PayPal. He invented X.com that he got kicked out of, then it got bought later on, and he made money off of it because it got sold after somebody else took it from him.
See, I always had the idea that he started PayPal.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. But that's what everybody thinks. They go, oh, where'd he get his money from? Oh, he started PayPal.
Oh, his family
was
very wealthy before that.
Yeah, and that is true. And I don't like that either, where they're trying to make it out like he's like had a hard time. And it's like, that's fine, maybe you did. But why do you need a backstory
you ever
like
seen
that?
his mother?
No, I've not looked up their family.
Oh man, she's something else. She kind of looks like a space villain. Like if you had an evil space queen with silver hair. Kind of like
the Mars Attacks lady.
Oh yeah, kind of really, yeah. I don't know if you know. A lot of these elite folks, seem to like that kind of.
Oh, there's real shiny looking people.
Yeah.
Where it's like, what's wrong with you? Like your DNA's different than mine.
Space Lord get up.
Yeah.
Deal. But anyway, sorry.
No, I've not taken the time to look up his family. I don't know, and I'm not calling Elon. I mean, he's got money. I don't.
Your mom, Elon. No, I'm just playing.
I guess my issue is people really care about their legacy and they don't want any dings in it. And I guess I get that, but that's not very honest because it's going to come out later on. I would think you would want to be honest right from the get go that, hey, look, I'm the guy that brought you SpaceX. But at the same time, don't lie and say that you were the exclusive bringer of PayPal and all this other stuff. Like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people are about to watch an idol fall. Because I mean, he's not like an idol of mine. It's just a guy that exists in the arena of the world. And now that I'm paying attention to him, I'm like, oh, wait a second. This is some people's guru.
He's definitely a titan of industry and popular culture.
People were like, this is a Jesus figure to a lot of people, and that's a real hard fall when people's Jesus figures come down.
But the funny thing, the funny thing, I don't really know anyone that. I mean, I know people that are impressed by him, but do you know of anybody that are really? I've not come across that.
Like open fanboys.
Yeah. I guess I'm sure that's out there.
I'm going to say no, but I think it goes more with the personality type. That a lot of people that are into the Musk figures and stuff like that would never admit it.
Right.
Because kind of like that crazy girl that was the Theranos girl with the deep voice. You ever looked into her?
No, I'm not familiar.
Okay, well, that's a rabbit hole you can look at. There's a.
I love rabbit holes.
Look up a company called Theranos. It was a lady who had convinced $9 billion worth of revenue to come into a company that didn't even have a product to sell.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll check that
out. And when you started looking more into her character, you started realizing that she had idolized Steve Jobs so much, that she had focused so much on becoming him, that she never actually did the hard part of actually inventing a company. But they believed her so much that she was able to hoodwink a lot of really otherwise smart people into giving her a lot of money. And Elon Musk is nowhere on that level. No, he actually has a product, lots of products and stuff like that. But I think there's a lot of people out there that give him a little too much credit, and they're going to have to eat a little bit of crow because, man, he's getting built up to be a titan. It's like, like perfect. There's nothing wrong with this guy, and you can pretty well research anybody and find a little bit of dirt. You know, why not do that?
I've really enjoyed watching kind of the Wall Street Bets community, a lot of like the Reddit socialist community and stuff like this. Just kind of pile on to Elon. I don't know why. I've just gotten a kick out of it over the last few months where he's kind of made some of these statements about Bitcoin and Dogecoin and, oh, we're going to be doing this. And, and then he angered the kind of environmentalist crowd by saying he was going to take Bitcoin because it was burning so much energy. The environmentalists didn't want him to use it because that's where Bitcoin pretty much derives its value, is the amount of energy that you have to go through to mine some coin. So I
know nothing about Bitcoin.
Well, the lefties and the green environmentalist people, they didn't really appreciate that it was using so much energy to create Bitcoin. So they give Elon a lot of crap at it. And then he had it from coming from the other side, from like your ANCAPs, and then you had your Wall Street Bets, and basically he was getting it from all sides, all the different, factions. How much
that's projecting, though?
Well, and it could be.
Nobody had a problem with Elon until he was like, maybe Trump ain't that bad, and they were like, no.
Or until he crashed their Dogecoin. I know some people that got pissed about that. So. But anyway, I thought it was pretty interesting to watch what he's been doing. And you mentioned Not Ready for Mars. What are they doing underground? Do you know anything about that?
Oh, with the Boring Company, because he owns that too. Yeah. Well, my theory on that one, I don't know, kind of like with the whole UFO thing. Like, you've had that technology that far. We've probably been digging into Earth. Well, they know they've had. Have you seen there's a YouTube channel, I can't pronounce the name of it, but he's a dude that finds these super old Soviet, well, no, I guess not super old, but they're Soviet era underground bunkers. Mm-hmm. And his whole point, he lives out these areas, and his whole thing is he goes into these places and shows people, like, look, this was real at one point. This entire country was so scared of going to a chemical nuclear style war with the United States that they built these things, and they're huge. They're like, if you could imagine taking a building the size of Super Walmart here in Elizabeth and then burying it crazy, crazy deep. Like the levels that he has to go to get these things. He'll crawl into like this little tiny pipe, go 60 feet to the ground, and then pop out into a hallway. It's just the level of depth he goes to find these things. But they're everywhere, out throughout the old Soviet countries. Right. So that was a real thing, and they're packed full of all the the masks and all that stuff from. And the idea that exists in Russia, we'd be crazy not to think that the United States didn't do something similar.
Well,
but
absolutely.
we didn't go under, so ours are probably still active or abandoned.
Well, we've got, of course, the famous Cheyenne Mountain Complex, but I think we've got probably in the Weather Mountain Complex in Virginia. But I think we've probably got a network of, I mean, most likely connected. I mean, would it really benefit you to have these underground sites where you can't get anything through to, you know, if you're thinking about in the event of a nuclear war and you're not able to just fly from, say, your command post at Cheyenne Mountain to your command post at Weather Mountain, it would only make sense to have those connected. And as you said, with a lot of this technology, when we find out about it, they've been doing it for a long time. And I don't know if you remember, if you ever saw it, but there was a show on, I can't remember if it was True TV or Spike TV, but it was kind of one of those little, you know, smaller cable networks. But they had a show with Jesse Ventura called Jesse Ventura's Conspiracy Theory.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that he put on there were really just conspiracy theories. But one of the things that he put on there that was a fact was they found a network of tunnels underneath the Ozark Mountains. He filmed it with, I can't remember, it's Oliver Stone's son. They filmed the episode together where they actually went into these tunnels, and these were large enough for two semis to drive past one another. Going through this tunnel, there was a rail network, and there was a whole parking lot.
Damn drug cartels!
There was a whole parking lot of electric cars sitting out there, right outside the place. So that's not a conspiracy theory. I've seen video, and they did fast frame the video to where you could see they went for miles and miles in there, and eventually drove right back out of it. But you could see loading docks, as I said, rail stations. There was like boxes of food sitting there, like boxes of fresh produce stacked up. So it was basically an underground city or an underground hub for, you know, distribution of, you know, goods from one area underground to another is what it appeared to be. But either way, it was a huge network of tunnels just right there under the Ozark Mountains.
Well, since people think we're going to start, because I know as soon as you start talking about underground tunnels, people think you're going to start talking about the Denver airport. So just for a little flair, before we continue with that, what's the conspiracy? Because that's with the idea of doing this little show here. We wanted to focus some on actual news stories because there doesn't have to be a conspiracy with smart poles, but they are a real story. We want to talk about them, and but I do like talking about conspiracies too, really goofy ones. So with that being said, what is a conspiracy that you think is ridiculous?
That I think is ridiculous?
Yeah.
Man, I hate to say it because I gotta give a lot of these people credit because at least they're asking questions, at least they're thinking critically, at least they're doing something other than regurgitating.
Is it a group or is it a specific conspiracy?
It is a group.
Okay.
It is a specific conspiracy. And that's the Flat Earth Society.
Okay.
I'm sorry to say it, like I said, I've tried to give them a chance to convert me. I've had them say some interesting things, but at the same time, I feel like if you have a basic understanding of astronomy and earth science, and you've actually kind of looked into it on your own recreationally, not just what you remember from junior high and high school, or maybe you've had it in college, I feel like you probably have observed enough to see that it just doesn't add up to a flat earth. Now, that's not to say that I can't say that we're not being misinformed or outright lied to about the nature of our reality, but everything that I see does not appear
to be their model
in that model of a flat earth. Yeah. So they may be right that they may be onto something, that the nature of our planet, the nature of our reality is not what it seems, but I don't think that they're right with
Have you seen man, I would love to, and I really do think conspiracy theory will be an actual subject.
Oh yeah, it already is. Have you read the Huffington Post or the Daily Beast?
No, I haven't been reading theirs because I don't really take what they're saying too. So I like conspiracy from a psychology standpoint because it reveals so much about human behavior and that sort of
or
stuff.
you know, just to be fair, on the other side, you know, the Gateway Pundit or Infowars, you know, or,
Right.
you know, they look at left wing conspiracy theories and kind of try to debunk them and talk about why they think so.
And I think a big important point that goes with right left, and because flat Earth, right and left, they're not exclusive at this point. It really goes with what I would call what's a better, I guess for a better lack of word, a belief system frame is what it is. The levels that you have to get to before you get to, like, if I just walk upstairs and try to convince Ashley that the Earth's flat without ever addressing, because we've never even talked about the moon landing, because we have that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to force that craziness on her. But if you've never even brought up a moon landing video to someone, you can't start right off the bat from, hey buddy, Santa Claus isn't real. Did you know the Earth's flat? It's a giant leap. And so it takes a lot of micro steps to get to the Earth is flat. So by the time a lot of these people get to that conclusion, I think they've kind of brainwashed themselves in a lot of ways.
I think that's a very good point.
Yeah. You don't get there with one step. You don't just watch one video. Because I'll tell you, the way I watch conspiracy videos, I watch them in a binge. I watched probably like 8 hours of Flat Earth videos once. And it wasn't because I was throwing through like, this is real. I was like, every group finds something wrong. What did they find? What is going on here? And I really think it's almost like circular thinking, where you want all this information to be wrong so badly that you're willing to swallow the most absurd pill possible to make it true. And I can't really blame some of these people too much, because I think they've been agitated in that position. Now, an interesting turn of it is Flat Earth, which is one of my favorite conspiracies, by the way, because it spawns so much stuff. One of the new ones is called Crater Earth.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
You've looked into Crater Earth. Okay.
I've not looked into it, I've heard of it.
Okay, Crater Earth is the idea that the Flat Earthers are right in the sense that we're being lied to, but we're on a ball. The idea of it is they're lying about the size of the Earth because they've got an entire hidden continent of resources waiting, and they're just waiting to waste everything that we've got and not let all of us normal Earth people know that there's a whole half of another planet down there waiting to occupy.
So basically, we're on a large globe.
We're on the very top
way
part
larger
of it.
than we've been told, and we're just in a
The
crater.
Earth is about the double the size. Well, there's different levels of Crater Earth. The most popular one is that the Flat Earthers people found that the Earth is about double the size, and there's a whole other bottom part down here, a continent missing. The other one goes into Hollow Earth, which is Admiral Byrd going into the Antarctica. The other one is the idea that the Earth is the size of Jupiter, and that the entire Earth that we're in right now is in a flat little crater, which is really weird because there's a 2018 movie called Early Man, which that's literally the exact script. A bunch of cave people come out of a crater and realize that the whole Earth's more modern and obsessed with soccer, which is in the conspiracy world is a Masonic sport, I think.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, Crater Earth is fascinating to me, not because I believe it, but because I really think we're getting into such a strange age of fantasy.
So now you got me thinking about Plato's allegory of the cave.
I'm not saying I'm right.
No.
They could totally be right, but yeah.
No, I'm just thinking of, the aspect of the people in the cave. They don't really have the information that they need. They just see the shadows moving, right? And I kind of feel like that's how humanity is right now too. We're kind of in the cave. And I guess that was Plato's point.
Yeah.
Metaphorically speaking,
you don't know what you're looking at.
Right. To talk about, just depends on what information you get. When you get outside of the cave, you see more than shadows. You can build a better picture of what's actually out there versus what you were imagining from just seeing the shadows from inside the cave. So I feel like that, that's kind of almost like what Flat Earth comes to is, we're hidden in this flat Earth, and we feel like we can see this information that doesn't make sense. So we want to be able to form it into something that's useful to us, that we can work with and explain why we see these inaccuracies in what we're being told and what we see. And so I can kind of understand it, I guess. But when I was watching Flat Earth, when I first saw it come onto the scene, and I don't know, 2012 maybe.
I actually saw it in the early 90s.
I was going to say, I'm sure it's been around a lot longer than that.
Passing out pamphlets in the bigger cities back in the early 90s, and I thought it was a joke at first because it was from the Flat Earth Society. Yeah. Before it was just Flat Earthers. But anyway, go ahead.
Oh no, that was pretty much what I was saying. Is when I first came across it, it didn't start with Flat Earth, right? They pretty much took the procession that you were describing, where you first come across one conspiracy theory and you find something that, well, these things don't add up, so therefore I'm being lied to, and there's this answer and this answer and this answer. So they start adding a bunch of these things together, and then eventually they say, if they lied to you about all this, then why can...
And that's the exact logic. I think, like Eddie Bravo. You know who Eddie Bravo is?
I do. That's actually who I listened to.
In my opinion, like, he is probably like the poster child for what I would think is just... Because a lot of people, they see how spastic he is, and I can relate because I get like out on caffeine.
Yeah.
And they think he's an idiot, but you don't... He's obviously not an idiot. You're not that successful in martial arts and stuff and be an idiot. So I think he's a classic example of what happens to somebody who spent their entire life paying attention to what they're a professional at. Because he was a musician, jiu-jitsu artist, all this stuff. And then one day you look around and you go,
his head exploded.
Holy crap, this doesn't make sense. And so you bite the entire bait and you just take all of it instead of reserving a little bit of judgment. And I kind of have to empathize with a couple people because, man, there's a lot of people that really think that the flat Earth thing was kind of like a CIA thing to drive the really tender brained people over the edge quicker, so it made all the information they found seem stupid.
Really, that was the first impression I got of it when I first looked into it. When I first found out it was a thing, as I said, back in 11, 12, 13, somewhere around there. I hadn't heard of it before, and started watching a couple of videos on it. And that's what I felt like it was. It was, let's find the people who are discovering conspiracy theories, and so some of these conspiracy theories, there's legitimate corruption out there. I mean, WikiLeaks, Panama Papers, the Paradise Papers, all kinds of these different releases have shown that all our governments are full of corruption. Where there's power, there's somebody who's going to do dirty things to keep that power, and somebody and people who are going to use that power to their own advantage and to help their friends out and things like that. So to act like there are not conspiracies is just being naive. But if people are actually starting to look into those actual conspiracies, it would do better if you were the perpetrator of said conspiracy, if you could get those people going all over the place and looking into other things and chasing down red herrings and rabbit holes. Yeah. And they actually did, this was the FBI, but, COINTELPRO, they set up I'm pretty sure it was in the 60s that they started the program, where they would pose as members of a local, protest group and antagonize them and basically rile them up and get them to do things that they didn't want them to do, and basically turn everybody else off to that movement before anybody could hear what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Whether it was against the anti-war movement, say you were showing people what was really happening in Vietnam, well, they would send somebody in to start busting windows while you were trying to tell them about that, so that people said, well, I don't want to be associated with these people at all because they're busting our windows up and they're disrupting society. So forget these people and forget everything that they're saying. And almost feel like that's what a lot of conspiracy theory and a lot of the industry, because it is a full-fledged industry. There's people who make millions of dollars off conspiracy theories. So I feel like if you were somebody who was engaged in literal conspiracies, that would be something that would benefit you greatly.
To make the people who are looking into you look insane. And so I think that's really what's important for all the conspiracy theorist people too to understand, because a lot of people don't have sympathy for the conspiracy theory people. They find them bothersome and crazy. What they don't understand is any of the good information that you're going to find, those are the people that are looking for it. So they're going to be wrong a lot because they're looking so much. But anytime something good gets found, it always comes from a source where you're like, oh, because that's the only people looking.
Right.
That's the only people looking, is the people who are willing to dig in some really strange places.
So if they, imagine if there was a smoking gun that came out and just utterly proved, say the United States government was 100% responsible for the attacks of September 11th. Say something came out that proved that. Say you had a video of Dick Cheney with, George Bush sitting on his knee.
The remote control airplanes.
Yeah.
It's
like, all right, little Georgie, we're about to crash these suckers. And, whatever. Say you had something that was indisputable. it would be hard to get anybody to even listen to it if you gave it to somebody like Alex Jones. Imagine Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Would he win over anybody? The people who already listen to him, sure, but they would be so angry and so upset that they would probably come off crazy, and nobody would listen.
Nobody
to it
wants
anyway.
to listen to you when you're screaming.
Right.
Like, I guess that's. I mean, anybody willing to sit here and listen to this very calm conversation probably doesn't have this issue. But in this current state and time, if you have a point to prove, you might want to say it very calmly. Because if you're saying it aggressively or insultingly, nobody's listening anymore.
Right. And that gets right back to the conversation aspect of the podcast that we were talking about and how we'd like to bring that back around. I've kind of made it, I was really hesitant to do this, really, because I didn't want to put myself out there. I've made it my policy to only talk anything slightly controversial. I'll talk to you in person about it all day, but I will not post about it online because
I'm done posting.
Yeah, it can be misconstrued. Well, not only that,
it's important.
Yeah.
I'm done posting like I just broke up with a relationship or something.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know. Bye bye. You know, that's what the internet pretty much says. If you're like, I'm not sitting in this chat room anymore. No, I know what you mean. I feel the same way. I used to when social media became really popular. I guess 2008, 2009 is when it was around before that, of course, but it was about then before you started seeing everybody walking around with their phone in their hand, and maybe even a little after that. But a lot of people were still just doing it on computers at the time. I know I was. I didn't get a smartphone until later, but about the time that you started seeing everybody on Facebook all the time, I started becoming. It was about the time I became aware of a lot of ills within our society, whether it be the police or the federal government or the Patriot Act or whatever it may be. So I started posting about this stuff, and I noticed a lot of other people started posting about it too. And it wasn't too long before you started seeing people say, "Keep your politics off my page. I come here to see my family and see my friends. I don't want to see that crap." And, I looking back at it, that would be more of the experience that I would want from Facebook now. But back then I found all this new information, and like you talked about, I was blowing my head off.
I guess a lot of people weren't so triggered back then.
I was trying to share it.
You
with
weren't
people.
overwhelmed with it. Like when people were sharing like police brutality videos, that's something you'd never seen before. You were like, "Holy shit, that's really happening! They really are beating people in like these cities and stuff." And so it really would blow your mind. But now you can't even tell what you're like. I know it sounds, it's not insightful at all, but like people clickbait you so hard with stuff you don't even know if you're watching. Like I remember somebody was trying to get somebody mad for a video from 2014.
That's a good point.
And so.
Yeah, well, that was exactly what I was thinking of while you were talking about that. Is when this started becoming popular especially around, I guess, 7-8 years ago, you had the advent of machine learning and, AI algorithms to promote certain content. And when you started seeing all these clickbait police brutality videos and stuff, these algorithms realized that was popular. That was getting a lot of clicks. So they were putting advertising on it and they were promoting it. And suddenly you have this cycle of just constant police brutality videos and constant outrage, because if you're not getting the outrage, people aren't clicking on it. You're not selling your product under there. So, I mean, it's a large country. It's 350 million people. So you're going to have those events and you're going to have them on video from time to time. But when you run out, you can just recycle them because that's what I was thinking of. You've got years and years and years of built up. Cities like New York City with 10 million people in it, Los Angeles with what, 8 million people or something like that. I don't know exactly, but a lot of freaking people in this country. And Chicago, these cops, they're fighting it out with people every day. So you're going to have videos of course. Now I'm not a big fan of the police at all, but I'm just basically using it to demonstrate where outrage has
been promoted so much that it's kind of taken over the culture, and now the whole social media has gone from "don't show me your politics" to "you better show me your politics. You better support the politics that I like, or we're not friends anymore. How could you be such an evil, heartless, communist, Nazi bastard?"
It's a strange way for people to show that they support each other now too, because once upon a time, you could put something out there and then people would give you a thumbs up or a comment or something. Now it's not really so much that. Now it's just people posting things that they think everybody else believes to make sure that you know that I also believe that, and it's a really gross way of communicating. So I choose not to do it. Man, to come full circle in this, it's the mindset that I was thinking. Have you ever watched Auditing the Audit videos?
I can't say I have.
Okay, it's essentially people who go out to the communities like a Kenosha or something like that. I know the Bay Area and San Francisco has a lot of these videos where people will go out with cameras and they will just stand there until the cops will bug them. And the whole point of it is they go out and they find cops with a camera on them and they try to show you that the cops follow their own guide in these other areas. Because I think it's a really hard thing for some people to get is it's not the same everywhere. They really do that in a lot of places. They really are. It really is strange in other places, and it's not like that here necessarily. But watching these audit videos, what really struck me was I think what creates these people, because I think they're a necessary evil, the auditors is what they call them. What creates it is a lot of these audit people have a history of, well, the cops absolutely harassed me as a child simply because I was poor, and they were always blaming me for thinking I was a criminal and all that stuff. So now that they're older and they can afford cameras and nice things, they go around, they harass these cops to show them what it's like, and also that you're not following the law, you're following a lot of weird stuff. But I think that's that same thing where the only people that's going to go out there and try to start a fight with a cop is someone that comes from that background. So all these audit people get a lot of bad names too, because almost all of them have a record. But why would Tim Nave, someone who doesn't have a record, go out there and start harassing cops to see if they're crooked? I would never know they're crooked. I've not been harassed by them.
Yeah.
But this dude over here who was harassed by them is now going out there trying to show you that they're corrupt, and yet we won't listen to him because he got arrested for weed when he was 15 or something. It's a really strange thing to see, because while you're watching it, it makes you think of the conspiracy world too, because both these people are right and wrong at the same time. The cop is sitting here harassing someone who's literally doing nothing wrong. But at the same time, he's like, you are standing in a park with a camera, and it's kind of creepy. So, so it's strange.
And you mentioned, well, I think that'd be a topic for another pod. I was going to continue down that rabbit hole, but gosh, if I started what was in my head right now, Tim, we would be talking for another 20, 30 minutes. And I think we're bringing it around to a pretty good conclusion there, where we're talking, we're coming. We made it pretty neatly, actually, from we're not ready for Mars back to smart poles, even if we didn't really intend for that to be the way it goes, to be the way it went, because now we're talking back to policing and
people
camera.
that are policing the police, like individuals doing it with their own cameras.
So what about for the smart poles? What about this? What about we keep an eye on the police with them, and we send their data to the citizens, so the citizens will know what the police are up to.
Man, see, that makes my head go in a bad direction, because as soon as you say that, I start thinking, what if they want all cops to have cameras? Because that could be a good end game. Because they don't right now. Not every cop. It's not like cops. We think all cops have that chest thing going on.
Yeah.
But what if that's the end game? Just to get a chest unit on every cop. Let's hyper expose people to all these bad people out there that are beating citizens, so all the cops have to wear the chest cameras now.
Well, to me, I'm all for that. Maybe you could tell me a reason that wouldn't be a good thing in the next pod.
I don't necessarily think it's not a bad thing, because it is accountability. But if we're talking about bigger surveillance, then having a cop on camera on every cop would be more surveillance, is all.
Well, that's true. That's a good point. But I guess I say let's use the smart poles and watch them. If we're going to put those things up, let's keep an eye on let's keep an eye on our government officials and our cops. I mean, I want to know what they're up to.
How much you think TVA would charge us for that data?
Oh, good Lord! I mean, they're willing to pay $335,000 for it, so they would definitely at least want to double their money on it, wouldn't they? I mean,
quadruple.
Oh yeah, but the bare minimum in business is double your money. So you gotta say they're probably selling it multiple times for millions of dollars. So anyway, I think that pretty much brings the conversation about to where we can get it for tonight and still wrap it up. So if you like this, please subscribe to us wherever we end up putting it on. I think we're going to go a few different platforms, audio and video. So if you like it, subscribe there and listen to it and share with your friends. Give us information, give us ideas, just comment on what we talked about, whatever it is.
And we'll grow. This is all impromptu. He's using a camera, and I'm using a vocal mic to record all this. So if people start watching, we can increase the quality. We can increase... I'd like to do some IRL stuff. He did some actual journalism for his part of the story. I think it would be interesting to actually do some actual journalism ourselves. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah, coming up on the next pod too, I'll probably be talking a little about some local history of the area. I think it's pretty neat. So be sure and check that out. We'll let you know when that's coming. But yeah, be sure and stay tuned.
My catchphrase is I'm wrong.
My catchphrase is you're right.